as we can, and it's basically just a giant bloodbath when it comes to the American StarCraft games, and those who are able to stand above the mass that gets left behind, the mass of bodies, to be clear, just from how brutal these games end up getting, is always an interesting question. And I feel like we talk about some players like Estrella who have kind of ascended, but when you're down in the dredges, the trenches of NA StarCraft, you're gonna see stuff like this pretty regularly. Now the probe scout, he does get to see what's happening, but Kev, this is such a fast attack. He's just gonna have to start throwing down buildings to finish this wall as fast as he can.
Yep, and I really love that Silky was hiding a drone behind his mineral line, because 12 pooling is obviously bad for your economy, but you can transition out of it if you can get that hatchery down immediately. But you also don't want to leave Zerglings at home to deal with a probe, to deal with a pylon, so that was honestly incredibly well done. And at this point, well, I don't think the 12 pool gets that much done. I don't see Asuna really making big mistakes here, but I actually feel like this is already quite alright for Silky, because obviously the expand of Asuna is going to be so much later than the expand of Silky.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Zealot kind of gets caught trying to run back to the wall. Now the probes are still here to lend the assist, but that Zealot is not going to be able to tank through all of this on its own. A little bit of surface area, just barely getting denied. The Zealot is dead, and the second one finished, but you know the problem is you got 2 more Lings that are going to be running in, and here, Kevin, I think we all know when the Lings get inside your wall, it's always a pain in the butt, because until you've got the Adept out or the Stalkers out, you're not as fast as those Zerglings. So they get the kill on the probe in the natural. They're going to delay that. And then, of course, if he looks away, if he moves anything out of there for even a moment, he's going to continue to lose even more to these Zerglings.
Yep, I think this is where the multitasking of somebody like Silky can really shine. And I know that sounds silly when it feels like there isn't much going on, but these Zerglings can be super annoying already. At first, I was like, oh no. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not that bad, because the Zealot and probes actually did all right. But you're spot on, Nate. Those 2 additional Zerglings, I feel those made everything worse, because that Nexus is now a solid 35-40 seconds later than it would have been otherwise. And even a couple of probes going down in the main. I think this was a pretty successful 12 pool opening coming out of Silky.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, just being able to kind of set the tone of the game, right? Set the tone of the series, putting a little bit of assertion, taking that dominant stance to kick things off is always going to be a nice feeling when you can actually do what you want to do, delay that base, get some damage done, force those probes to get pulled. And Asuna's got an Adept or 2 now. Going to be sending their shades toward the natural as the Queens kind of jockey towards the 3rd base. I mean, Link speed's not done anytime soon, but the position of them on that ramp with the distance makes it quite tricky. He really sent the Zealot across?
Yeah, I think just trying to be annoying and hoping that maybe Silky was very greedy and only building drones, but we know Silky played this quite safe and made 10 additional safety Zerglings, so I don't really think that these gateway units are going to get anything done. Now, the Queen count is currently at 3. 3 should actually be enough to obviously deal with the first Oracle. It could even be 4 by then. So Silky played that safe. Made perhaps a few more links than he really had to. But I think his economy is still in a pretty good spot. And taking 0 damage of those Adepts, that's always a nice thing to have happen.
Yeah, you have the Oracle that's going to pop out. So he'll try to get a little bit more work done after this and is going to follow the Oracle up with a Void Ray, Rotterdam. And I feel like the Void Ray has kind of been classically known for, you can get the safety Void Ray, right, for a 3rd base, or if you think Roaches or something like that is going to come. But have we seen a tremendous amount of the Void Ray usage? I've been trying to tune in as much as I can, and I feel like I've only seen it in some of those PvPs, mostly.
Now, PvP has definitely been a matchup where I feel the Void Ray has been shining the most, but there are definitely a couple players who've been spamming them a little bit in the ZVPs as well. I mean, yesterday we saw Australia have an absolute passion for Void Rays and made a few more than I even like to see. There's definitely cool stuff you can do right now with the Voids. I mean, just making a safety Void Ray isn't that bad anymore. They're cheaper, they build quicker. Good job there by Silky catching that probe as well. Silky is really getting a lot of little victories across the board. With those little victories, they truly snowball in this matchup. But yeah, to answer your question, no, we haven't seen it that much. Australia made them. Overall, I feel more in PvP indeed than in ZVP or PvZ.
All right, fair. So he's continuing to build them. He's getting another Stargate. So I guess we are going to see a rather significant number of the Void Rays this game. So for those of you who have been looking to see what can be done with these. We're going to get a little bit of a taste in this best of 5. So we have 2 going across the map now. Number 3 is about to pop. Of course, it's very hard to try to do any sort of attacks with these ground units when they've got so many air that can shoot down, which makes attacking a little bit tricky. But we know that the Void Ray with the prismatic alignment can also roast any overlords that are near the base, denying expansion like this easily.
Yeah, but they still don't do very well against the Queens. Good job there, getting another cancel. But this is the moment I'd love to see the Void Rays disengage, because Queens are still pretty damn good against Voids. Even 3 Void Rays really don't want to fight this amount of Queens. I want to say not even 4 or 5 Void Rays really want to fight this amount of Queens if there is energy available. But I think what Asuna is going to try to do is avoid the Queens and just get another cancel on that hatchery, because that honestly is the best thing you can possibly hope for here.
Yeah, can't argue with that. There is just 1 Queen in the main base, but there's several spores that have been added to deal with the Void Ray harass threat. And this was a little bit of what the discussion around making the change to the unit was revolving around, right? Was being able to use Void Rays as a harass unit. But some of the weaknesses of that are still a little bit, I think, possibly. Okay, I'm just going to cut down to brass tacks. He's making a bunch of Hydras, and Hydralisks have never necessarily been bad against Void Rays. So making sure that you can have something else with that, or a follow-up to it, or somehow snowball enough Void Rays to clean up a Hydra push is going to be, I think, a big question mark, because, yeah, I feel like I've almost never seen Void Rays do very well against Hydralisks, Roddy.
No, I'm with you. At this point, I feel like the Protoss build is not really going anywhere, but I desperately want to be wrong. There's more Void Rays are on the way, plus 1 air weapons is on the way as well, so it definitely is a proper commitment to the race. I gotta say that Infestation Pit is really quick. Is that for a hive, or are we gonna see something very wild like Infestus? Keep a close eye on that, but okay, it is going to be Infestus. Maybe some quick fungals, or even Microbial Shroud, Natanius.
No, don't say it, Kevin. Don't say it. It is good. You know, you talked about it, and then were you casting that day? I feel like I was watching, or maybe I was casting that day, and I just immediately saw like Mass Carrier playing versus the Microbial Shroud, and it actually was useful. Am I gonna say it was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my entire life? No. Did it cut the damage in half as the tooltip said it would? Yes, it did. It did do exactly as the tooltip suggested. So I was very, you know, it's like when you buy knockoff Pop-Tarts. It's like I bought knockoff Pop-Tarts. I knew they were gonna suck, but you know what? They did taste like knockoff Pop-Tarts. So thank God for that.
Yeah, that's perhaps a very good way to put it. Now there is a Colossus on the way as well. Obviously, this Colossus doesn't have thermal lens. It's kind of funny, actually. It's going to be Colossus Void Ray. I have to... Oh, please pay attention. Okay, 1 Void Ray does get picked out of the sky. Now Carrier's on the way as well. So I guess it's sort of like 1-2 safety Colossus. I mean, Colossi are always good against Hydras, with or without upgrades, right? Because of all that bonus damage against light. I still don't really feel this build. But if I look at the amount of static defenses, I'm like, maybe we can get some very weird stuff to happen here. Because a Colossus near a battery is pretty good.
He's got to change it. He can see where everything is, too. So he must be feeling confident. Another couple shield batteries are going to get started and some cannons. But, I mean, this is exactly the kind of thing you're worried about when you lean heavily on Stargate builds in PvZ, right? If you just get the Mass Queen, Hydra push. The Queens have the range. They have the heals. Nothing does bonus damage to them. And the Hydralisks as well. If they can be kept alive, they will kill everything. The DPS is absolutely wild. And the Void Rays, I guess, fighting one at a time.
There
the
we go.
Disrespect. New manner.
It's pretty good. Look, the Void Rays can't even kill a single Hydra.
You're right.
I've said it's good. Esports history in the making. Microbial Shroud completely annihilating the Void Rays over here, Nate. What do you make of that?
Yeah. No, as I said, it did a very good job there. I feel like it wasn't going to be the game changer that would have won him the game if he like didn't have it. I don't think he would have lost, but
he would have been murdered.
Definitely helped.
He would have lost everything then.
I love you, Kevin. I love you. I don't disagree that Microbial Shot has its uses, especially when your opponent just rushes mass air. Does it affect the Colossus attack since it technically also counts as an air unit?
No, I don't think that's how it works. I'd love to see him drop it a little more forward. I mean, there's no need to really protect it, right? Like, it's not like the Protoss is gonna kill the Shroud. I mean, the Void Rays really can't fight. Like, memes aside, Shroud is actually doing some work. This one Colossus deserves a medal, by the way, because without that Colossi, this game would have already been super over.
Yeah, this fight was surprisingly close.
Look, you see that Hydra?
Yeah, I saw it on the bottom left. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful play by Silky. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. If you need to deal with a Void Ray infestation, Microbial Shroud may just be able to clean up that mess for you. That was brutal. That was absolutely brutal. I don't know. Like, when you do those builds, it's just very hard to afford what you need to deal with what's good against it, right? Yep. Even with the cost reduction to the Void Ray, you're like, oh, I can afford to build 2 Void Rays at a time now. And you're like, yes, well, you're still spending all that gas. Maybe you have a couple extra minerals for batteries, but you know, if you can't go like double robo with that and have like 3 Colossi ready for that push, because then I think maybe things are a little bit different because there's no corruptors, but
yeah, I would have almost liked to see a Disruptor instead of the Colossus, even though that Colossus really did do work. I feel like with the Disruptor, obviously then Microbio Shroud is completely useless, but then also you can get lucky, you can maybe really reduce that army count or just a few more cannons, because I feel what was really just lacking there was quite simply DPS, right? Like, Void Rays can't always fight. They really need to maneuver in from awkward angles where all the Voids can shoot, because you can stack those on top of each other, and the Hydras obviously cannot be stacked on top of each other. But it was a cool idea. Maybe a few more cannons, maybe some additional sentries. I know it's hard to afford all that gas when you're building Skytos units as well, but I almost even say, and this is something I would never say, Nate, but when you're facing a push like this, like the Queen Roach Hydra push, and I don't want to say that this is always all in or that the game has to end there for Silky, but I actually think building Tempest is better than building carriers, because carriers are good in higher numbers, but one carrier, especially when it spawns with 4 interceptors, has no impact on that fight. And it takes a lot longer to build carriers. So I'm a Tempest hater. I really don't like Tempest. But I have realized when I'm in similar scenarios, as I do like to do silly builds like that, the one that Asuna just did, that Tempests actually are a lot more useful than carriers are in these low numbers. Also because the Tempests are cheaper and they build way quicker.
That's actually a really good point. Well, I mean, in that situation too, if there's no, like I said, if there's no real area, there's no Vipers, no Corruptors, the Tempest is going to spawn inside your base and shoot from a bit further away and be very safe too. It's highly likely the Tempest would survive the whole fight, but
absolutely
would still have its damage cut in half by the Microbial.
Yeah, that'd actually be very bad. I mean, you know what? Maybe there is no counter to the Infestor anymore, Nathanius.
What can I say? It can mind control units. It can cover them in fungus, and it can apparently, you know, it's got farts that block damage.
Skytles is dead. Rip Skytles.
F's in the chat.
All right, guys, in the bottom left side, this man did show us some Void Rays. It was a pretty fun build. Shame it did not work out. The Chinese Protoss living in Canada, it is Asuna.
And a man who was very happy that they ungated the power of the Shroud. In the Northeast, the Red Zerg player, he is Psystorm's Silky.
You know what I do think is funny is, like, I've seen a couple of Zergs, and I'm not going to mention any names, but basically a game where they made multiple attacks and it really did feel that almost everything was going wrong. And then the Protoss is super far ahead and they're making a whole bunch of carriers. And they're like, you know what? We're going to make 2 Infestors. And then basically they're attacking with like 24 Hydras and a couple Shrouds into like 17 carriers. And they're like, lol, nice spell, Blizzard. I'm like, yeah, what did you expect that was going to happen there, okay? Like, this game was super over, no matter what you were going to make. So I do feel that people never gave the spell a real shot.
Oh, I mean, it certainly has its uses, but my opinion was always that, especially when they were trying to add it, right? Like, we didn't really have a meta that I think supported air armies versus Zerg, because they kind of classically had some of the best ways of dealing with big tier 3 air armies with like Neural Parasite. You know, prior to the removal, like Infested Terran, you kill, like, you know, my mind goes back to like watching 100 Infested Marines just kill like 16 battle cruisers, right? Like, those units were all, you couldn't, like, you didn't need Microbial Shroud, right? And even now, as players are starting to use it more, because Stargate's getting pushed a bit more, right, with buff to the Void Ray and such. But there are a lot of other good tools that people just prefer to use, I guess, like Corruptors, right? They're really fast. They do stupid amounts of damage. They're unbelievably tanky. Like, they're a unit that basically has no weakness, right? So why would you try to get Infestors that can be sniped or feedbacked when you instead could just make the super mega chunkers that'll kill all the carriers in 10 seconds anyway? But it is kind of a cool audible to see, because you don't have to invest as much to get the value. Just getting those 2 Infestors with a push like that is a great way to kill pretty much anybody who's trying to turtle up to Stargate units, right? And I feel like you would probably only experience that if you were, the type of Protoss who is going to be trying to get up to that early Stargate in a big way, which we don't really see on the pro level as much. And, well, sometimes for reasons like the game we just watched.
Yeah. No, of course. I mean, I know that I'm never going to convince the world that it's actually a good ability, because I know that everybody's going to make fun of me for that. Then I obviously see the reason why it's not good. And the main reason is that Hydras need to stay in one place. Well, guess what? Protoss has a couple of very nice tools to deal with units that stay in one place. Storm, pretty good. Purification Nova, excellent. So obviously in that way the spell is a little bit silly, but there are unique moments that is actually pretty useful. It's not always useless. Let's keep it at that for now.
No, I agree with you, though. If you're doing a build where you have enough air units that your opponent would consider using the Shroud ability, it's probably because you've invested so much into air that it's like a double or triple Stargate that you can't just build Void Rays and Carriers and get Storm on like 2 bases while you're getting your 3rd saturated. Like,
exactly.
It's just not possible. So if you're in a position like Silky where you're like, I can do a big push where I can bring all my queens and everything, then I think the Shroud's the best thing that you could get, because it, like as we said, it really is the cheapest way to get a massive buff for all your units in the fight. No one's gonna have Storm in that situation if they're trying to build Carriers and after building 8 Void Rays to start the game. So I don't disagree with you. It's just a rare scenario.
Yep, that is exactly what it is. It's a relatively rare scenario, and a lot of Protoss players really prefer different openings before even thinking about getting into Skytoss. But when you have these straight Skytoss openers where they do try to rush out the air upgrades as well and don't really warp in any gateway units, it honestly is not that bad, Starkers community. I know you guys want to make fun of the Infestor, belittle it a little bit.
I know how to save it, Roddy. You can do a PR campaign for it. I know how to save it. We just have to, instead of the problem is the joke about the fart cloud, but it is orange. So we can just say that it's like the Dorito cloud now, and everyone will think it's cool, like the Raven missile. There you go. Boom. We just got to rebrand it. We just got to rebrand it, do a little marketing work. The ability itself can work. We just, we got to change the perception. Another double Stargate opening, by the way. So we may very well see the Shroud.
You know what?
Shroud of Death.
Part of the PR campaign, all we need to do is slip like Raynor or Sarah a 50 and be like, hey, make a bunch of investors for us, make them look really cool again on the top of Reddit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you don't even need to go that far, Kevin. All you got to do is be like, hey, if you make one tweet and just be like, hey, sneak the hashtag ad in the back, but just make one tweet, be like, I really think that the fart cloud is underrated and will be used more in the future. Hashtag ad. And then everyone's like, whoa, Cyril said it's good, guys, we did it.
Oh my god, wouldn't that be the greatest ad of all time? If I had too much money.
Anybody can ask Cyril how much he wants to charge for that tweet. Let's make it happen, guys. All right, it doesn't matter if we talk about it publicly here. All right, 10% of the community will hear these specific words, but everyone will see his tweet on top of Reddit.
A little bit of crowdfunding, and we'll get Cyril to tweet it out. Sounds like a good time. All right, so is Silky aware of the fact that this is once again not just a single Void Ray, but it's non-stop Void Rays? Doesn't really know it yet, Nate, but this time I do feel like we have a slightly different follow-up. Like, yes, it's double Stargate, but this time we also see a Twilight Council and a Forge, so maybe some Zealot Archon Void Ray kind of stuff?
Yeah, well, see, the whole thing about doing builds like this, and especially I think you and I are both players who like to do weird stuff, you have to try to build ways to defend the obvious counters to your build, right? People don't do these strategies because they're overpowered. They do them because they're good at them, and they usually know what they need to do if the opponent's like, oh, he's just building Void Rays? All right, I'm just going to build a bunch of Hydras again and A move them. Like, you need to consider that is very possible into your strategy. So that's why I would love to see Archons, I don't think you can jump to Storm that fast, but I really like the idea of going for Colossi. I'm just like, you need to go like double Stargate, double Robo, like Rotterdam style, you know? Don't even get Warp Gate.
Yeah, but there's also a reason I stopped doing any Wings of Liberty. I was like, man, I'm just giving these Zergs a little too much time. It's like I get one army and I might even get a somewhat decent fight, but then they have 17 bases and I'm in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
So, what I'm a bit worried about is that he is indeed heading into kind of Archon, Zealot, Void Ray. But do you know what's absolutely fantastic against literally all of those units? And that is Fungal. So if Silky just sits back, builds up 180, 190 supply of Hydra, Roach, Infestor, lands 3 Fungals, you're going to see the saddest Protoss army of all time, because I too have tried these compositions. I'm like, it's really good if they don't fungal my army, but they like to fungal my army, Nate.
You know, it's unfortunate that players try to use the abilities that they have available to them to kill our stuff, because otherwise you could just do so much crazy shit and win. But tragically, yeah, those melee units. I mean, you know, all jokes aside though, if you're able to get into a position where there's not a tremendous amount of infestors, or they want to use the shroud, right? That energy trade-off suddenly becomes, well, if you're using the fungal, it's, you know, maybe the DPS loss if you have shield batteries is not going to end up being that big of a deal. You'd rather them use the fungal, right? If you have batteries or you can spread your units out, than them use the microbial shroud, which takes all the damage out of your air units.
Man, you're really on board on the Shroud hype train. I love it.
Well, we're watching a game again where the guy's got seven Void Rays, so
yeah.
normally I would make jokes, but you're right. This is exactly the kind of game where this ability is very useful because the majority of his DPS is in the air.
Yeah, it's a bit wild though, because he also got a ridiculous amount of gateways, is sitting on Storm, so having all the Storms is nice. The problem is right now that there is actually no proper counter to Lurkers, and I just don't feel that the air units he's going to get out are in the overwhelming numbers you need to just kind of look down at Lurkers and be like, haha, I've got air. I mean, I hate to be the anti-hype guy, but I really feel this is not going anywhere. I really want to be wrong. I hope Silky makes a bad fight. I hope he stands in Storm. I hope he showers himself in Storm, as I think there's a lax fight for the players as well. And it is you, my good friend.
Okay. Yeah, it died again. I lowered everything down to like 720p and it still just blew itself up. I'm sorry about that, guys.
All right.
Just kill
well,
it.
the game is still going on. Yeah. I think that's perhaps the best thing you can do. Did you? Oh,
yeah,
you killed it,
I don't
right?
know if they can get the admin deposit. Yeah, I just killed it because it's bugging out. I don't know.
Okay, but you're still in the game. That's so weird.
Yeah, my screen is just black. All right, there we go. All right, I'm out of it. Sorry about that.
All good, mate. All good. Technology. I mean, I got kicked out of Discord today, or disconnected. And I was like, I can't connect.
I don't know why this happens. I don't have anything else running. I'm literally just in this call and in the game, but all right, we should be good.
We can continue. Let's go ahead and hop back into Pillars of Gold. Like I said, I really hope that I'm wrong, Nate, but I just kind of feel that this Protoss army is not really going anywhere yet. Then again, if Silky waits for both Lurker upgrades to kick in, then maybe there will actually be more than enough time for Asuna to potentially even get a couple of Disruptors out on the ground. Everybody knows that I have a weird obsession with Carrier Disruptor, but trust me, guys, it's really, really good. As long as the Corruptors don't have the same upgrades as your Carriers, you're going to have a great time. Right now, I'm still pretty worried for Asuna.
Yeah, it's still really difficult, right? Because Silky kind of just absolutely smashed it down in the last game, and this time around, it doesn't. I'm not 100% sure. Is he just going to bring everything with this again? He's got all the queens very far out.
Don't forget, there is Storm this game, though, so that's already very different, right? And Silky is pretty heavy on the Hydra, so Storm can have a pretty good impact. Please pay attention to your Void Ray.
No! Okay, 2 dead. Well, could have been worse. Still pretty bad. And this west side expansion is super dead. But as you said, he does have the Storm, so at this point, it becomes a little bit of that, right? He just kind of painted over, but
these Voids are so stuck.
That's why.
The Voids eventually turn around. They're like, you know what? We're just gonna kill a Viper. And Viper is like, no, you're not. Oh my goodness, that Viper still didn't go down. All the Void Rays just went down, but hey, the Lurkers all got obliterated as well because there was nothing protecting these Lurkers. Maybe not the, I want to say maybe not the worst raid ever, but when I say that, he's rebuilding the Void Rays, and I don't really get that part, Nate.
Why not go like 5? If I was like thought I might lose it, I don't know, like maybe like go 5-star gates and just really just double down on the carriers, but rebuilding the Void Ray, I don't see how that helps. But the other problem then becomes here is he's gonna get a bunch of abducts. Very great at unit deletion, but the storms will zone some space out to help protect those carriers, and the zealots are actually still a handful of them to charge forward. Hydralisks on their own, very, very squishy.
Man, we've got a couple of roaches harassing the base at 6 o'clock, and this is actually becoming very painful as we're still watching the big fight, of course. I mean, these storms are cool and all, but Silky's got so much money in the bank. Asuna does not, as a couple of feedbacks do land as well. I mean, this is just not the army to step on creep with. These roaches, Nate, have really gone to town on this middle line. 12 probes go down, and this is really starting to hurt.
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, this type of army composition has a lot of glaring weaknesses that are pretty exposed by that. You know, we were talking about the Colossus Void Ray earlier, and I mean, Vipers literally just counter that whole composition, right? Just pull in everything one by one. If the High Templar don't get the feedbacks before the animation of Abduct starts, you're in a lot of trouble. Even though the range is similar, as soon as that tongue starts shooting out, you can feedback it a million times, pulling your units over. You have to be really, really on top of it, as the Void Ray is going to chase a bit of these roaches. And that's another nice part about the Void Ray change, I guess, right? Like, with that Flux Veins, with being mobile, it kind of be a little bit better at getting around. Phoenix were never really, like, the greatest unit ever at stopping this stuff, but he's got a lot of lurkers sieged up on this base now that he has to dislodge.
He does, but he doesn't have a lot of anti-air, and that's a little bit strange considering the fact that Asuna is still flying around with a whole bunch of carriers, even a couple of oracles. Well, goodbye to the oracles. It's not really that you want to use those. That was kind of a weird way to get rid of all your lurkers, but hey, if Silky feels like he doesn't need them, who am I to judge?
Yeah, and I mean, if you have a lot of money, we did see a little bit of this type of stuff earlier. There's the Abduct. Just click on it, it's dead. +3 attack starts, 7 High Templar get warped in, so I guess lots of Archons to try and bully back any potential corruptors as well is never a bad move.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest problem with funky, funny builds like this is just that you don't deal a lot of economic damage. I mean, how many drones did Asuna kill this game? 1 drone. Obviously, we all know that if you kill a single drone in a 14-minute game, some other things better go really well for you. The problem is they haven't really gone really well for Asuna, and I feel like the most important thing is that you get something similar to what Gerald had going for himself yesterday against Lambo, and that is keep the Zerg on 3 bases a little bit longer, right? Like the Void Race maybe cannot fight the Queens, but they need to be active somewhere. They need to slow the Zerg down, and that has just not really happened yet. Now, we are going to get a couple of massive storms here, though. All of the Queens are getting showered in storms. Nate, is this a little bit of Protoss magic?
I mean, at the end of the day, he still has to deal with the fact that the Corruptors are coming out, and he's got some of the Vipers with the Abducts. The Lurkers are trying to zone those units away, but are 2 Void Rays on their own? Okay, actually 2 more did come up from the south side to help kill those Corruptors, but the damage output is still there, right? They're still so tanky despite everything, and they're so fast. The 1 carrier trying to get away, I don't think he minds just killing the Void Rays themselves. A couple of reinforcing Void Rays are going to show up, though. That makes things slightly interesting. Carriers are still dead, though, so are the Void Rays about to win this game? I don't think so.
No, I mean, the High Templars have to really get home as well because there was nothing protecting those anymore. Silky even has the base at the bottom right side. Now, Nate, I don't know if you think that's a 10-yard penalty or not, but in my opinion, that's a 10-yard penalty and an automatic first down. Not okay.
Well, I tell you what, if someone was running plays like that against me, I'd be pretty pissed. I'd be yelling at the refs, Roddy. That's all I have to add to that. All of those shenanigans. It's absolutely uncalled for. So it's called taunting, actually. Not supposed to do that. He's gonna be assessed a fee after this game by the franchise administration. Don't worry.
Taunting or unnecessary roughness, as a storm does. Uh-oh. I mean, the Protoss army is trying to do whatever it can. These lurkers are getting very close to all the High Templars. A couple of Zealots have been warped in to save the day. I gotta say, Asuna is doing a very good job in not dying. I mean, maybe if he starts spending his money a little bit. Silky is just so damn rich, though, and I do feel that he's still not really going anywhere. He does have +3 air weapons. Everybody knows I love to see that, but I wish that we had a
moment. I felt there was a moment in this game, though, when we talked about it, when he started to rebuild the Void Rays after he threw all of them away.
Yeah.
And I still believe that there is, in fact, a number of carriers you could build at you probably won't be able to be killed by most armies unless the other guy's got like Cyril level control. I still think there's a number of carriers that can be reached there, but he hasn't really tried to reach that number. And I don't think that having just like 5 or 6 carriers mixed in with a bunch of other units is necessarily going to do it. Like, if you're going to play this style, I feel like you have to overload in that one direction at the end of the day if you want to ever kill your opponent. You know, like I think back to the Geralt game, right? When he had 14 carriers, I'm like, yeah, nothing's going to stop this.
Nope, unless you've got a whole bunch of corruptors, and 5 or 6 is definitely not going to cut it. These High Templars all left by themselves. That is obviously a pretty expensive gas loss. Are we going to see a couple of feedbacks here? Yes, we do. One carrier gets abducted, but actually not really on top of the army, so pretty good fight for Asuna. But Nate, he's losing more probes in the bottom side of the map to Lurkers that ran into his mineral line. All of the High Templars have been picked off, and eventually you're going to run out of gas.
Yeah, he kills a lot, but, and I'm sure the resources lost tab could look interesting, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how much you kill if your opponent has way more bases than you. Yeah, it's like, does it look even? Sure, but guess who's mining so much more? That main base is toast and natural. I'd be surprised if there were any pennies there. And this is a cute little push out, though. This is nice. Is he ready for the 13 corruptors that are going to be coming out to join this? We'll have to wait and see.
Hell no. This Lurk is still going ham, by the way, in the bottom side. 12 kills at this point. Hydra's thinking of running under the carriers. I mean, all that Silky really needs to do here is get all of his units in one place. He's got 102 army supply. I don't really see it yet, but I believe it's about to show up, and I think that this is going to be the end of game 2. These carriers are going to get wrecked by the Hydras and Corruptors, and Nate, automatic game 3.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to game number 3. Silky gets up 2-0 over Asuna. And Cute Style, still lost, unfortunately. We'll see what happens in the next map. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, the possible conclusion of Asuna versus Silky. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are currently sitting at a 2-0 lead for Silky against Asuna in the DreamHack Masters Fall America edition. I'm Nathanius, joined by Rotterdam, and we are here to educate you on all things related to Void Rays, Microbial Shroud, and just how dumb corruptors are. Kevin, are you ready for game number 3?
I am ready. I really hope that somebody slipped Asuna a memo where it's like, if you want to be top level Zerg players like Silky, please either deny a fort base or third or kill a bunch of drones. Because the thing is, I see why Asuna is doing these builds, and I can see a lot of games where they're really good, Nate. You play against a couple mediocre Zerg players that are a bit confused about what's going on. They build units at the wrong moments. They're working with bad economies, and you can pull all of that stuff off. The problem is, if you don't put any pressure on this man, his economy is going to be way too powerful, and he simply has way too much swarm. Anyways, we'll talk more about that soon. In the top right side, he has taken a 2-0 lead here in the lower bracket of the DreamHack Masters Fall North America playoffs. It is Silky.
And his opponent in the southwest position, the blue Protoss player, he is Asuna.
What? All right. Nate, hello? We've got a man who wants to cannon rush against a man who's 12 pulling.
Well, so this is just a very quick loss, right? Is there anything you can do here?
Actually, going Forge Fast Expand, I think is pretty damn good against 12 pull. So what I would do right now if I'm Asuna is you build a cannon at home, and then you can actually build an Nexus. He doesn't do that though. Like this is actually my default response against 12 pull. It's just to build a Forge. You build a Nexus, then you build a cannon, and then you wall off, and then you're really good.
Okay, well, yeah. It's still a very weird thing to see though. I don't think I've ever actually watched this happen in a game of StarCraft before though, Kev. I've never seen a 12 pull go against a cannon rush, and I guess the Protoss response is, yeah, you just do that wall off and kind of chill.
The thing is though, I don't really like the way that Asuna has done it, because now Asuna's Nexus is going to be really late, while his tech is already pretty damn late, so this is not good. I almost wish he would have just gone for a 12 or for a cannon rush. He's trying to block it off like that. I guess he doesn't want to go for the full wall. I know that like Turkey Dano and PrintF would say that there are ways to cannon rush a 12 pool opening. It's obviously a bit awkward and it plays out very differently, but there are things you can do. What I do know, Nate, is that I think my build, if I go Forge Nexus, is like it's pretty good against 12 pool, but it's about even. If you also squeeze in a gateway and a gas and a cannon before the Nexus, I have the feeling that you're very far behind as a Protoss player.
Yeah, I feel like every time that we watch these fast pull openings, whenever the Protoss like reacts too much with getting the wall off, with getting everything situated because they're worried about the lings coming in, it ends up hurting. But at the same time, I also feel like I've seen too many times where the Protoss tries to just get the Nexus before they do the wall off, and then they just die.
I mean, that is obviously when they have a gateway, right? Like then it becomes incredibly difficult to pull it off. But I think if you have a Forge, trust me, Nate, I could make a YouTube guide about it, and anyone would be able to get that part. It's very easy.
I would love to see that guide and then have everybody in everybody's chat for the next 3 months ask if everybody else has seen that guide, Kevin. That to me sounds like the highlight. I want that.
The thing is, that video would be so boring, Nate, that even I would downvote it, because it's literally like it's
my own video.
It's Pylon Scout is like, oh, he's got 12 pull. Well, warp in a Forge, warp in a Nexus, warp in a Gateway, warp in a Cannon, and warp in a Pylon to block yourself out. And there will be like 5 or 6 seconds where Zerglings are nibbling away at your buildings before your cannon finishes up. But it's a decent start. Obviously, that does mean you have very late tech. In this scenario, Asuna has slightly early attack, but it's still very late compared to a normal game. Silky's already on 3 bases. This is economically, honestly, a pretty bad position to be in as a Protoss.
Well, don't worry, Kevin. He's building Void Rays again. So surely this time around, the boys in blue are going to be lasering down some very powerful units. And maybe this is where we see the dream become a reality, where he gets all the carriers that he could want. Because I have a strange feeling we're going to see an army probably a bit similar to the one that we've seen him strive for in the last few games. However, if I was to take one serious, you know, if I was gonna really try to look at it and bring my heart into this, I would say that I do like the idea, at least on Eternal Empire, just because it is a bit more of that defensive map. If it's possible, then this is where it's possible.
More carriers is what you'd love to see.
I don't really know, man. Whatever it is that Asuna wants to do with these Stargates, because he doesn't really seem like he knows if he wants carriers or Void Rays most of the time. He sends the Void Rays out and they die and then builds more of them. And I'm like, hey, I guess we kind of treating these Void Rays like they're Marines and drops or something. just send another 2, send another 10 supply, no big deal.
Yeah. I mean, we'll keep a close eye on it. I do like that Asuna went up to 3 bases very quickly, obviously realizing that circling speed was going to be late and he had the safety Void Ray. So I love that part of his gameplay, and there is indeed a second Stargate, as we do have a couple of additional gateways being webbed in as well. Now, I want to just say one more thing. This is something I've said many, many times in carrier games, but I think it's very important and underrated aspect is the reason why I always talk about good save there. Good last minute save, please. No, that is a dead Void Ray. That is a dead Void Ray, Nate. That's a scouting marine that just went down. That's bad.
Yeah. Don't worry. He's got 2 more Hellions in production. He's fine.
Now, the reason why I always go on about Carrier Disruptor much over Carrier High Templar is that, sure, having High Templars against feedback is nice. The problem is whenever you're storming Hydras, your Interceptors are also flying above the Hydras, and Storm takes care of your own Interceptors, and it just means that the Carriers always run out of juice real quick, and then even if all the Hydras have 10 HP, if you got no Interceptors left, they're useless. And this is why I really prefer Purification Novas. Anyways, Nate, we've got a Nidus network. This game may not last for a very long time.
Silky's like, I'm done with this, man. All right, enough with the damn Void Rays flying all over the place, microwaving units to death. I'm done. We're coming to an end.
He didn't see it, and this is actually going to be really gnarly, because if that Nidus goes up where, for instance, that Zergling is chilling right now, and that is exactly what's going to happen. I mean, these Hydras are going to hit so quick. There is no Colossus out yet. And how do you fight the Hydras then?
I think you die. I think that I generally believe that is what happens. He's going to have, what, 4 or 5 Void Rays fighting X number of Hydras and Queens, which, as we've already seen, of course, Queens, they're not really scared of most anything that flies. So they're going to make their way forward up this ramp with the rest of the units. Starts another Nidus inside of the main base. Yeah. Really good distraction tactic. He's already pulling a bunch of probes to deal with that.
A couple Hydras will come out, but the Queens are not here to heal it up. That's actually still quite a few Hydras. This is very problematic. Silky can already just decide to go one more time into the 3rd, or just try to go into the main one more time. But this is already successful. I feel like he really wants to get the Queens out, but that's not going to happen, man. Prismatic Alignment is one hell of a drug. Well done there by Asuna.
Good target fire by Asuna, yeah, for sure. Still has to deal with the force outside of his base. There's a lot less Hydralisks now, but more are in production, and it is the Nidus network, so they're going to teleport across the map to join their army, but at least this is where the shield batteries are, right? This is the best place to fight.
Yep.
Not that there's any good place to fight now, but...
Are there Queens inside of that Nidus already? That's in the natural. It's just Hydras for now. Now there are a couple Queens as well. If you take out the robot, that'd be massive, because that Colossus is about to pop. And at least the Colossus comes out. There are a couple static defenses to fall back to. It's just snowballing out of control, Nate.
Well, the Void Ray, the Colossus is able to do a decent bit of damage. I mean, it's not like... I don't think he has the speed upgrade for the Hydras, so those are moving slowly. There's still a bunch of cannons and batteries at the 3rd. Like, eventually the Colossus will come over here to do something again, but worms are everywhere. I don't really think that he can stop this, if I'm being honest.
On 22 probes, it's getting close. There's only one pylon powering those Stargates. Destruction gets on power as well. Another Void Ray bites the dust. Another one goes down. It really all comes down to the Colossus.
Big Daddy Colossus is getting a lot of overtime in from these slow Hydras off creep inside the base, but outside of that, pretty much everything is going about as badly as it possibly can, and I do not think that repowering these Stargates and getting 2 more Void Rays... Okay,